357 Magnum versus 10 millimeter auto and revolvers, and what I have today is our Hornady critical duty ammunition. I'm going to test these through my 4-inch Smith & Wesson revolver, so my 4-inch model 686 and my 4-inch model 610. Both of these are very similar weight. This is 42 and some odd ounces. This is 40 and some odd ounces, so only about a 2-ounce difference in weight. So we should be very comparable for, felt recoil and all of that. So our 357 Magnum is a 135 grain flex lock bullet. We're rated at 1275 feet per second. That is through an 8-inch V barrel as their test barrel. I have noticed that a lot of times some of their ammo is very off because of that, but the critical duty is actually pretty close. So we should get pretty close to 1275. It's almost like they did use a 4-inch, but they didn't list that. Now our 10 millimeter auto, 175 grain, rated at 1160 feet per second. They did get that through a 5-inch auto, semi-auto barrel. 4-inch revolver is very similar to the amount of travel in a 5-inch semi-auto, but we might get some cylinder gap gas loss. Interesting thing is this is rated at 1160. I have an old box of this 10 millimeter that I am going to shoot at the steel, and this is actually rated at 1150, so they went up by 10 feet per second for some reason. So interesting. So we're going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy we get at the same time. Then I'm going to do my 10% clear ballistic test. I'm going to go into plain clear ballistics to see what the best potential of those cartridges are. No denim to clog a hollow point, anything like that. We'll see how they expand and penetrate and our best potential here. And then we'll do more of our real world simulation, where I'm going to have 4 layers of denim on this first 3-inch piece that represents our pectoral muscle. After that, we're going to have a 1/4-inch medium density fiber board to represent ribs or sternum right here. That'll be more of our real world simulation. We'll see how they compare that way. And then, as always, I am going to shoot at my steel target to see what kind of practical accuracy and recoil I can get. I'm probably going to stay a little bit closer than what I normally do with this test because these are duty rounds, but I do want to see it, how quick I can put them on target. So let's get started with this test. All right, 357 Magnum flex lock. We're rated at 1275 feet per second. Let's see how close I get to 1275 feet per second in my 4-inch barrel here. $12.62, $13.10, $12.98, $12.83, $12.65. So we're pretty close to that rated velocity. Our 10 millimeter auto, we're rated at 1150 through a 5-inch semi-auto barrel. Much heavier bullet though. We're at 175 grains, and like I always like to do with semi-auto calibers and revolvers, is I put some marker around one of these bullets, around the bottom of the bullet that's exposed and the case mouth of that cartridge, to see if there's any bullet creep whatsoever. I don't think we'll have any, but I still want to know. So we'll see how close we get to 1150 feet per second here with our 10 millimeter. 1108, 1105, 1101, 1100. I'll read in that last one because I did pull it a little bit. And yeah, we did get some bullet creep. It's not super significant, but there is a cantilever on there, and it pulled it up away from that cantilever just a little bit. So that's something to be, cautious about. We didn't actually get the bolt to creep out, and that is after 5 rounds of 10 millimeter, so that's not too bad, but I'd be cautious about that. So see if we can get a read on this last one here. 1104. So it didn't seem like it took away from that velocity at all, and that's not much velocity loss, to be honest. 1150, we're only 45-50 feet per second below it's rated through a 4-inch barrel. That being said, this is pretty low on the power when it comes to a typical 10 millimeter, but it's still good power. So let's set our ballistics gel block. We'll see how these two compare. All right, we're going to do our best potential in the plain clear ballistics. So 357 mag, let's see what this does. All right, let's hit that with our 10 millimeter auto. Let's go take a look. All right, so very similar here. Not too bad overall. Very consistent. So we have our 357 mag on the bottom, our 10 millimeter on top. Not a huge difference for the amount of energy dump we got going on. One thing I'm noticing about that recoil is, you know, the muzzle rise and actual foot-pounds of recoil feel about the same between the two, but the 357 mag is just a little bit sharper of a felt recoil. That's something to take note of. We don't have a ton of damage in here because we have some very consistent expansion, it looks like, at least with our 357 Magnum. So that's some tearing going on through there. Not huge expansion, like I said. That's because they designed this bullet that way so that it's very tough, so it can defeat barriers and still penetrate a little bit. So because of that, they can't have these huge petals that come out massively large because they would just break off. So they engineered it with a little bit harder lead alloy so that you get pretty good expansion. But if you were to go through a barrier like a car door, we'd still get expansion, as where other bullets might fail. So what we got with our 357 Magnum is a pretty good expansion. We're at about 16 3/4 inches of penetration. I can't see that 10 millimeter, but judging from its power, obviously it expanded, or else it would have over penetrated, because I can't see through that bubbling. But what we got going on there is about 17.5 inches of penetration. So I would say very comparable between both of these. So let's put on our Denim, put on our MDF, see how they compare in more of our real world simulation. All right, 4 layers of Denim, 3 inches of clear ballistics, a 1/4 inch MDF. That's our clothing, pectoral muscle, rib simulation. Let's see what we get with our 357 Magnum. All right, let me set that all back up. We'll hit it with the 10 millimeter now. All right, same real world simulation, 10 millimeter auto. Let's see what this does. Let's go take a look. All right, so in our first 3 inches here, we had the same amount of, expansion going on, just a little bit less, but pretty similar. And when we look at our medium density fiberboard here, our first impact was on the bottom here, 357. We had good expansion going into that. And then our 10 millimeter is just a little bit above that there. Also, we had good expansion going into that. So that's proving that it's expanding right away and then penetrating, which is a good thing. That's what you want to see for a round that's going to, do well for you. I know that sometimes it looks like the bullets might have hit another bullet, but you guys aren't seeing it from the top, where, the one here that I just shot is actually this way further, a couple inches away from the one behind it. It's not, this block isn't 1 inch thick, and they're all, gotta understand that parallax effect. So we did not impact any other bullets, and I want to mention that because it almost looks like they did, but they didn't. What we got going on here, though, with our 357 Magnum, pretty good damage going on, very consistent to what we saw in the plain Jane, almost exactly the same penetration. We got a penetration of 16 3/4. I think that is what I mentioned before. So pretty much exactly the same. So very consistent there. Now, when we look at our 10 millimeter, there's definitely a little more damage right here because the bullet is a little bit bigger. And we went again to a very similar penetration. I think I'm going to actually list the same number, or maybe a little more, 17 3/4. So all these stayed within, the penetration numbers we want to get, and they stayed very consistent. So, these look like really good rounds overall, and both of them had very mild recoil. And I think that's basically why they designed them. I know a lot of people are going to get on here and be like, 357 Magnum, and then they're like talking about how, we're barely getting 500 foot-pounds, if that, and same with the 10 millimeter, but they don't understand that, Hornady designed these things so that they're very shootable. That's part of the design process of these. So they are going into duty guns, and they're shooting very easily, and they're still doing the job very well. So yes, they are watered down, but they're made that way, designed that way to work at these velocities and have a very mild recoil. So I would say to me, they're doing very, very well for what they are. So let's take these out. We'll take a close-up look at them, and then I'm going to shoot our steel, see what kind of practical recoil control I can get with these follow-up shots and all that. So let's do that. All right, so here's a close-up look at these bullets going through our plain gel. Here is our 357 Magnum. I haven't measured any of these yet. I don't bring my calipers out to measure them out here. I do it after I get back and I'm doing my video editing. So I can't tell you if these are 1.5 times expansion or not, but I'm guessing this is. I think 357 needs to be something like 5.535 or something like that. This looks like it is, which is pretty impressive because I thought for sure it wouldn't have expanded that much. Looks pretty good with a 357. Our 10 millimeter, it looks like maybe not as much percentage of expansion because it doesn't really look a whole lot bigger than our 357, but still that is really good expansion, very consistent expansion. Both the 10 millimeter and our 357 look pretty good through the plain gel. Now when we go through a medium density fiberboard, you know, this is where a hard antimony alloy lead comes into play. It doesn't really change a whole lot. You know, with standard lead, you'll bust off a lot of that lead, but that holds together really well. And these are also a bonded bullet. They're not technically bonded, but they have a cantilever in there to hold that that jacket to that core. That's why you see a cantilever, which is an odd thing for a 10 millimeter on a 10 millimeter. It's not an actual cantilever, but it's pretty much the same thing. So very interesting here how they do that. 10 millimeter, you probably guessed it, going through our Denim and MDF, not a huge change there. Probably a little bit more difference between the plain gel and the MDF one with our 10 millimeter than the 357, but still, we have very consistent performance. We had good expansion overall. So looking at these, all of these did quite well. They all look pretty good to me. This would be a good choice for ammunition. And I know people are like, well, those are kind of weak. Yeah, they might be weak, but they're doing exactly what you want them to do. And that weakness actually allows you to shoot them a little easier, better follow-up shots and stuff like that. So honestly, to me, what I'm seeing here is a win-win. You know, we're doing better than a 9 millimeter, but we're doing it with, you know, not that much more recoil. So very good overall. So let's a close-up look at those. All right, so since I fired a couple shots to our ballistic test here, got a couple empties in each of these guns. I'm gonna dry fire one, and then I'm going to do a reload, and then see what kind of follow-up shots or recoil I can get, you know, recoil control I can get on that target, see how they shoot for me. So using a speed loader, obviously I'll throw our 357 Magnum, and then our 10 millimeter using a moon clip. See what the difference is for me, for how a reload does, and how they feel for me for recoil control. So I'll just put the speed loader where I can access it really easily. Let's see what we get with our 357 Magnum. All right, so very easy to shoot ammunition for me. Very low recoil, easy to control that. All right, I had to cut away because I didn't have a moon clip in this. So when I went to pull it up and then eject it, nothing came out. Duh. So I'm gonna mock that single shot here, that it's empty, and then reload the moon clip, see how it does for me. So here we go. I felt myself losing a little bit of that control of that gun for some reason. I knew that last shot was gonna miss the second I pulled that trigger, because the fifth shot I felt it going high, and I did not correct that properly. I felt myself just kind of let it go. You know, the recoil on this is just a little bit less sharp, but there is just a tad more muzzle rise. So between the two of these, I would say both have about the same amount of felt recoil. However, the Magnum still kind of feels like a Magnum. This kind of feels like you're shooting a 45 ACP or something like that. It's not really Magnum recoil. So I'm gonna paint that back up. I'm gonna shoot from 25 yards. I'm gonna aim a little bit better and see how they continue to shoot for me. All right, I'm at my 25-yard marker. I just want to do some slow fire at 25 yards. See how these things do for me. So 357 Magnum. Let's see what I can do with this. All right, those things shoot pretty good for me. A little bit to the left for me. That could just be the way I'm Looking through my sights. 10 millimeter. See what this does. Alright, those shoot pretty good for me. I said I wasn't going to back it up any further, but you know what? I'm having a lot of fun here. These are shooting very consistent for me, so why not back it up to 75 yards and see how they continue to shoot. Alright, 75 yards. I have a few of these rounds left. 357 Magnum. See where these are hitting for me. Alright, so not particularly good. I thought they would shoot a lot better than that for me. 10 millimeter. See if I make any hits with this. Alright, so I fired, that second shot there was from a round that was from my old box of ammo that I purchased in 2020, I believe. So we did get a misfire on that. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Very light primer strike, so that's a hard primer. We'll get a little bit more strike force going single action. So let's see if I can get this one to go. No, I ain't gonna mess with it. So move on to the new fresh ammo here and a moon clip. Keep trying. So I did absolutely awful from this distance. I should have stayed where I was because those are shooting fantastic. But yeah, sometimes I see these weird ammo anomalies. I don't know why I missed with the 357. I think I've shot that ammo from here before. So it's probably just me today. I've noticed over the past like 6 months, my eyes are starting to go, I think. I can't see quite as well as I used to. But, you know, shot pretty good. Our 10 millimeter just seemed like it was all over the place for me. So, yeah. One thing about these 10 millimeter moon clips that come with this 610, they're a lot different than others, where you can actually just very easily get them off even without a tool here. One thing that's kind of negative about them though is sometimes if you get ammo that's a little bit out of spec, they don't want to hold in very well. But yeah, that works pretty good. So look at this ammo though, as personal defense ammo. I know what people are going to say. Well, that's pretty weak for 357, or that's pretty weak for 10 millimeter. I know people are going to say that because that's all they ever do is complain about 357 and 10 millimeter when I test it, about, you know, how it's supposedly supposed to be 300-400 feet or foot-pounds energy higher than what it is, and I think that's kind of unrealistic. But looking at this ammo though, it's designed to perform at the velocities that it's at. You know, we got pretty much rated velocity, just a little bit less with the 10 millimeter. So at those velocities, that's how this ammo is designed to work. So if you're getting the correct expansion, the correct penetration, like what we're getting, you know, a little low on the expansion, but we're getting it basically to work consistently every time. You don't necessarily need to go up higher in power. That's kind of the reason why 9 millimeter is more popular nowadays, is they designed ammo to be, you know, do all these things that other calibers could do, but with a little less power. If you design it right, you can pretty much get all these things. That doesn't necessarily make it great, but this is kind of the same thing we're seeing with this 357 Magnum and this 10 millimeter ammo. It's designed to work, and it's very shootable. You know, other than me just kind of letting that one round shoot high at 12 yards, I mean, this stuff was very easy to place on target with multiple shots. So overall, this stuff is really, really good ammo. So there's not much more to say than that. It's good. So that's what you get today. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.